Right, Lindsay?
Good evening, Jeopardy fans, and welcome to hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel presented by thejeopardyfan.com. Once again, and as always, I am Andy Saunders, and I will be moderating tonight's discussion. I've got a pair of champions from recent Jeopardy episodes here on tonight's panel, so let me get right into the introduction. First up, winning on January the 8th, and then winning again. Sorry, my apologies. Winning first on January 5th and then again on January 8th. Welcome to hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel and congratulations, Brandon Brooks. Brandon, is your audio working? Brandon, can you hear me?
Thank you for having me.
Uh-oh. Brandon, we can hear you now. It was just cutting it. It was just very slow to come in.
I can hear you. Yes. I can hear you. Can you see me?
Sounds like a robot voice to me.
I'm going to do some very quick technical support on the fly with you, Brandon.
Thank you.
If you take a look up the top of your Hangouts window, you see 6 different icons. The fourth one from the left, if you mouse over it, it's called Adjust Bandwidth Usage. If you click on that and reduce your bandwidth, I will say hopefully that will help your internet connection, I believe.
Okay.
You're sounding better already.
Right.
And our second panelist, she won on let's look back. She won on January the 9th after beating Brandon. Congratulations and welcome to hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel, Lindsay Resnick.
Hi.
Okay, so looks like everything. Hopefully the audio hiccups will not be a thing tonight. I know things can be weird with the internet sometimes, and that's what we get by going live. But generally, it still works pretty well. If you've got a question or a comment for tonight's panel, you can leave that on the hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel on Twitter or the YouTube live chat. And if I like it, I'll read it out. So it seems like this has become a traditional first question that I ask of my panelists here on the panel. It seems like everyone, or I would say the vast majority of Jeopardy contestants are also Jeopardy fans. And most Jeopardy fans have an origin story, as it were, as to, how you became a Jeopardy fan in the first place. So I'd like to ask the both of you, how did you both become Jeopardy fans?
Go ahead, Brandon.
Okay, I'll go first. Make sure, can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Now I can, yeah.
We can. Yep. We can hear you now.
All right. Just so as I alluded to, if you saw my first, I'm a game show nerd.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because everything same show. Sleep was I am into it. There was a contestant. She was this woman. She had a nerd, very clearly a nerd. And I had to say she was also queer. And so I remember seeing her a couple of times and thinking she just, I'm seeing myself in her. I want to do that one day and like her, and she's uh, she's appeared over the few years. I think as of recently as 20, and I don't know. I kind of look up to her in a way.
Brendan, you were.
What
I
got
hate
me
to-
into Jeopardy, and like I said, I've always loved games. Alex Trebek, and I follow.
Brendan, I hate to tell you this, but you were really cutting out there, and I really want to hear this story, and I'm feeling sad because I can't. Can I? Can
Much where it kind of quite 90s.
I was about to suggest, can you turn your video off completely, and that way, hopefully, that'll allow us to be able to hear you.
Yeah, I can.
Let's try that. Okay. Now, Lindsay, can you also
turning it off.
Okay, Lindsay, can you also turn your bandwidth down on the video?
All right, that's unfortunate.
Sure. How's that?
I think also my connection may be wonky, so I'm sorry about.
Brandon, can you try again, please? I think it's working a lot better. I think it's working a little bit better now that Lindsay's turned her bandwidth down as well.
I'm just doing audio only right now. Okay. No. Everything hear me? Hello.
Hello,
you can't hear me?
hello. I can hear you now.
Oh,
I can hear you whenever you're saying anything that is, can you hear me?
Okay.
Oh, that's better.
So I'm just gonna part of my apartment, and maybe that might work better. Okay.
So far, so good. Crossing fingers.
I'm sorry about that. Okay.
You know what? It's okay. You know what? Honestly, Brandon, it's really okay. Now that I think hopefully we've got you working a little bit better, so that'll be. And I first also I'd like to apologize to my viewers, and I'd like to thank everyone for their patience in getting our connections all working. So, you were telling a really good story that I think we heard about a third of.
Okay. Well, let me try it again. I'll be quicker this time. So, as I alluded to in my first show, I was a game show nerd. And so I follow lots of different game shows, and Jeopardy had been one of them. Into it when I was younger, I saw this contestant named Claudia Perry, and I saw her, and I thought of her as being very nerdy, but I saw a lot of myself in her, and who was kind of cool, and I actually wanted to be like that one day because I always felt that I was kind of that knew a lot and wanted to show what I can do, and so that's kind of what got me, and kind of I just wanted to try it out for myself.
Well, I think that's a really, really great story. A really great inspiration. I certainly have personally enjoyed watching Claudia Perry on Jeopardy on her many different appearances.
My turn. I guess it's my turn.
Oh, yeah.
So I honestly don't remember when I first got into Jeopardy. It's just kind of something that, for as long as I can remember, people have been telling me, you should be on Jeopardy. So that's basically just, how it happened. I would always watch it whenever it was on, but I would never make a point to, turn it on at 7:30 as it is here in Atlanta. Until maybe about 5 years ago, with an old boyfriend, I would watch it every day. And we got really into it. And yeah, that was basically how I got into it.
Very nice, very nice. Now, one thing, I actually have I'm going to move on from that. A question from user Copaceticness on our YouTube live chat. Was the streak of one game winners a topic of discussion in the studio, and was breaking it especially on your mind, Brandon?
Well, I personally don't remember it as being a topic of discussion, but it was super exciting when Brandon did break it.
I didn't care.
Oops.
Just one most important critic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just really, I never really thought about it. I didn't really care that much. Really wanted to, obviously I really wanted to win, but I didn't expect to win one. That was happy day, for me to win one, and the win twice was insane for me.
So, how surprising was it when you got that Final Jeopardy, your first Final Jeopardy, and Sean did not?
Andy, it wasn't surprising. It wasn't surprising. I was really acting the entire time, make good, So, yeah, not surprised at all. First off, I do not like comic books, and so the only thing that came to my mind in Final Jeopardy was to write Archie. The way I think is that if I get it, because I know that all these contestants smart. Of course, everyone else got it, and so I was surprised when Claudia, who we talked to last week, I was surprised when Claudia didn't get it. Then I was, very surprised when Sean didn't get it. Just barely stand up. So.
Well, I would say you certainly expressed a lot of surprise on the respective broadcasts, for sure, when Alex announced you as the champion.
Yeah, definitely.
My next question is for you, Brandon. You've obviously been on, you've mentioned this a couple times of being, game show nut, been on a couple of shows. How do other game shows compare to Jeopardy in terms of the contestant experience?
Oh, fantastic question. For people who don't know, I was on 2002. I was on Hollywood Squares with Tom Bergeron, and actually Whoopi Goldberg was on there. I was the champion of the college tournament for 2002. And back in 2012, I appeared on Who Wants to Be a Nerd of the Era. And I would say was such a tightly run ship. An absolute joy. The care, contestant coordinators and the producers and the stage manager, they really took to make sure that the contestants were comfortable and that they knew how to play the game, and that it just felt really, really good. That incidentally enough, I actually met one of the contestant coordinators who was square, and we recognized each other. She was very lovely then. Lori, she was lovely then, lovely. quality of PI on this game show. It was by far my favorite. Hollywood was definitely a better experience.
Okay. I don't know. I can't remember if I knew that or not. I can't remember if I knew that Laurie had worked on Hollywood Squares before Jeopardy.
Yeah. And she called me, one who calls all the contestants, Lindsay, got on. But she called me and we were talking about, they want to know if you appeared on other game shows, time frame was, because they don't want you to appear too close back to back on. So we were just talking about the history and everything, and Lori was like, "Hey, I think I know you." Did you do a joke? It sounds like she said, "You, oh yeah, I remember you." And she's like, "You remember me?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think I." So it was nice, we want to showing like partiality, because obviously I didn't get on the show because my relationship with her, that she was very nice back then, and every man with all the contestants, including me. So it was great. So.
Absolutely. Okay, so moving on a little bit, this question specifically for Lindsay. I had a discussion actually with Buzzy Cohen recently about, because one of his acquaintances was in I guess he was taping it recently, and we got to talking about how he thinks that extra studio time is really helpful with getting getting your getting your bearings and really having a sense of what goes on. So Lindsay, how much did it help you to have to carry over to the second day and go through the motions a second time?
That's a good question. I think that it did help. Honestly, when I was first, told that the taping would be 2 days and that there would be two people that would be held over to the second day, I was dreading being one of those people. And when I found out that I was one of them, I wasn't thrilled. But mostly that was more to have to do with my hair and makeup again the next day. But a problem that Brandon didn't have to deal with, waking up at 5 or what was it, 4:35 to do my hair. But and my mom did my hair. I don't think she's watching, but just a shout out to my mom. So the second day, it actually did really help. I'm really glad that I got a chance to stay the second day. I also am especially glad that I got a chance to know everybody that played on the first day, whereas somebody who would have gone earlier on the first day would have had to have been, I guess, sequestered from the rest of the contestants. So it was a lot of fun to hang out and sit with everyone on that first day. But I think, yeah, just getting the feel of the tempo of the games was really was probably the best thing about it.
Now, I would say, Lindsay, the numbers show that you kind of really struggled on the signaling device a bit. Was that something you just were never really able to get the hang of?
Yeah, it was. I don't really I would love to figure out how the numbers show that. But I always had trouble. I feel like a lot of the time I have a bit of, I guess what you would say, slow processing speed. It's an issue that I had in school. I would, take longer to finish tests and things like that. But I I sorry. So I think I tried to overcompensate for that, and I think I got locked out a few times. And obviously that helped in some fashions. For instance, on the Capizio question, where the other two contestants didn't get it right. But for the most part, yeah, it was just something that I was having trouble with, and I definitely felt like nothing I could do, even at home, I could really practice with it because I wasn't getting the right feedback. If you were using a clicky pen at home, it's not the same as getting feedback and knowing that you did it wrong.
Mm-hmm. Now, Brandon, how did you feel about the signaling device?
Um, I loved it. I think I got locked out maybe 2 or 3 times, but for the most part, if I knew it, I got in. And I don't know, it was just a rhythm. I don't know, I got into it, and so I felt really good with how I was in. I got my timing down pretty well.
Mm-hmm. And for the sake of our viewers, I do again apologize. I've decided to set this audio only so that we can hopefully get everyone's sounding better, because obviously I would definitely say that what everyone has to say is slightly more important than how everyone looks when they're saying it. So, and I think our
Too
panel
bad I
would
put my makeup on tonight.
I'm sorry.
I am just
Me
kidding.
too.
Just kidding.
Okay, so a couple of things that came up this week. I know that I unfortunately Julie isn't here. Yeah, Julie isn't here from Thursday's game, but obviously there was and I hate when this happens, by the way. I absolutely hate it because it goes viral and it blows up. But she had the situation where there was the video clue
Mm-hmm.
where she obviously didn't realize that there was a video, and saw Detroit and went for Eminem, and then realized, oh, there was a video, and that she mistook Jack White as Eminem. So if you guys could kind of explain, because obviously you both were in there and there are a lot of video clues, how does the video clue process work?
Go ahead,
Brandon,
Lindsay.
I think you might know better than me since you, I guess, played a third more games than I did.
Well, so it's very clear as a video clue. Essentially, you're always looking at the board, because we do clue faster, and so you can get the answer, so you can be able to click in right when he's done. So that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of actually say video clue, and that is your cue to look at the screen. Get really dazed to move that at the screen and see what's going on. But they definitely warn you, and you do a lot of rehearsal and practicing on how to handle video clues and even audio clues. I don't think we had any audio clues in any of our games and all. So them's the breaks, you definitely, they do their best to let you know what's going on, but it's a lot of pressure in that situation. So sometimes you forget.
Mm-hmm. And it's the screen. How large would you say that screen is, and how easy or difficult is it to see?
So I actually do know the dimensions of the Jeopardy board is 42 inches. Yeah, I know, right? I know. But yes, there are several 42-inch screens each other. And then the actual video screen that you look for clues and things of that nature is a much larger, I would say probably a 70 to 80-inch screen, similar in size to the screen that Alex sits next to
Okay.
when he's at his podium. It's clear. It's really interesting when you watch it at home, the entire TV screen, or the video clue fills up the entire TV screen like that in the studio.
Okay.
It took a little bit of a jump, but things are visible. It's just you have to adjust.
Okay. And about how far would you say it is from where you're standing to the game board?
Would you say about 30 feet, maybe 25?
Yeah, maybe 25, 30 feet. You know, on TV, I hate to say you're just this big old expert on everything on TV that it does in person. So the Jeopardy set is a large set, but it looks humongous on TV. When you get there, a bit more intimate. So, yeah.
Okay. So my next question for you, for both of you, and I think this has been the topic of discussion in a lot of spots, and I think Alex even alluded to it a little bit. Since the turn of the new year in our time, or the beginning of the October tapings in studio time, it seems like the questions have been a lot, or the clues have been a lot harder. Would you both agree with that?
I wouldn't necessarily agree. I definitely see that the clues are longer. I feel like, and that's part of like the complaints I've been seeing of people online that the show's going too slow. I think part of it is that the clues are a lot longer and more complicated. I personally haven't felt that they are what I had previously seen before I taped.
Yeah, I would kind of agree. It's been always like the luck of the draw. There are some days where I watch Jeopardy where I would kill that game. Like I would run the first board, the second board, I would do very well. And there's some days that I just have no idea about. And I think it's just due to I have gaps in knowledge that I just don't know. But I would also agree with Lindsay. There's a lot more, really a lot more complicated, and a lot more, and more of the video clues and the audio clues. I think that's to make it more visually interesting for the viewer at home. What does happen, and people do complain about that, is that the board.
And I think there is a very vocal crowd of people who want to see 61 clues every night and get very upset when they don't.
Yeah.
She says something about that. If people know and watch most people don't. Fleming, you can watch those episodes and you'll see that many times there'll be a ton of clues left on the board. It's always kind of been like that. So, and Jeopardy's supposed to be a really high pressure round, and so it is uncovered, and that's the way it kind of happens.
Now, interestingly enough, I know in terms of completed boards, I've run the numbers on them on this stat a little bit. Even as late as 2008, but maybe 10 years ago now, they were complete. Both boards were being completed about 3/4 of the time. And I'm not sure what specifically has happened since, but since season 25, those numbers first went down to about 50% and then have dropped into the 30 to 40% range. And this has happened over the last 10 years.
I have some ideas about what's happening with that. Like I said, I think the same thing with the sister show Wheel of Fortune. Barry Friedman, who is the executive producer of both shows, has done a lot of work to make the show. And so there's, again, a lot of those video clues, a lot of the audio clues, verbal link, Olympics that they do to try to, make clues more. But also, you have to take into account that time has been decreasing over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Where you would get 3 minutes out of a game. Yeah, you get 22 to 23 minutes out of a game. You're down to maybe less than 20, maybe 20 and a half minutes. And so there's nothing that they can really do about that. So that it has to give somewhere.
And that's a good point as well. Yes. I seem to recall I mean, I would honestly, I'd have to go back and I'd have to take a look at, because I mean, I have some VHS tapes of some of Ken Jennings's games too, that would, might make for a good point of comparison to see how long the runtime is on some of these, episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on from that. Another, I don't know how much the both of you can speak to this specifically, but obviously there was an issue with Thursday's Final Jeopardy, and we believe it's going to result in Rebecca coming back later in the year.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you guys know about the whole protest procedure, as it were? Especially when it comes down to, say, a poorly worded Final Jeopardy.
I honestly don't know anything about it. I didn't protest, didn't see any opportunity to in any of my games. Not that I was thinking about it, but yeah. And on that specifically, on that instance, I would have never, I had absolutely no idea what that Final Jeopardy answer was going to be in the first place. So that's not something I would have noticed at all. So I can't say anything to do with this.
Yeah, so I don't think, me and Lindsay, neither one of us stayed at our 2 games that week. I watched Lindsay's game against Gilbert. I think we both left after Gilbert became champion. So we didn't really see what kind of happened there. It just in terms of knowledge of like what happens when people do protest, because I think that game shows will go. I don't know. Like I said, game shows will go back behind themselves and see. You know what? Damn, that wasn't really written well. That could have been tighter, and that left things for interpretation. And I actually applaud Jeopardy really going back and saying, you know what, we didn't do this right. We need to do right by this person.
I agree.
And there's been really wonky questions. Yeah, and I'm very, very impressed and glad that this is our bad. We may have messed up. We're going to go back and fix this.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, Jeopardy has had a long history of doing that, and certainly that's a good thing, and often better than a lot of other shows in that respect from time to time. And also, I mean, even then, it's still a rare occurrence for somebody to be brought back. So I mean, it's not like they go around issuing these invitations willy-nilly.
Right.
So, now both of you obviously being part of the previous week's set of tapings, meaning you both at least got to enjoy lunch on Sony's dime at least once.
Yeah.
So I asked the both of you, what did you elect to have for lunch?
Go ahead, Brandon.
Oh, wow. I really remember. So, rap and chips. I went over. I think it was Claudia. We were. I think we actually both went over our allotment of $12. And Glenn was there to the day and pay our way and all. But I think it was some sort of California wrap and some chips, crazy, and a Diet Coke.
Okay.
I know I was going to need. I knew I was going to need the caffeine after eating. So yeah.
I had just a, sorry, Sony, a very disappointing slice of cheese pizza. I think some kind of candy bar, and I don't remember what it was, and some like a tea of some, like a Snapple or something. Wanted to get my $12 worth.
Yeah. Now, it seems like I'm hearing a lot more stories in terms of people going over their $12 allotment. Have the prices gone up at the Sony commissary?
I don't know what they used to be. So.
Yeah, I don't think either one of us would know. But I know California and Los Angeles is expensive anyway. So.
Okay, so, how much did it surprise you, Brandon, regarding Alex putting you on the spot regarding the Wizard of Oz theme song?
Not at all. Because some people ask me, it's like, oh wow, he really put it to you because he was trying to really test you. I say, if you're a real game show nerd like I claim to be, things, and so someone who claims to have over 600 MP3s of a game.
Yeah, that's an excellent point for sure. What would you say is kind of your most obscure game show cue?
That's a good question. Let's see. I can tell you my favorite, most obscure game show because there's many that no one's ever heard of before. Probably Jackpot. Thing of Major League Obscure baseball thing. This week in baseball, and it was a thing called Jackpot. Yeah, and so I actually, when I was in college, and I would play the thing because playing game show things while I'm doing. They might actually to like submit that because it's from that This Week in Baseball. So
now that's interesting. I definitely find it interesting how a lot of the shows often reuse the same music.
It was cheaper. Definitely reuse the same music. I mean, Jeopardy is one of the things that has reused music. I mean, the Think music, I think it's called A Time for Tony. Made its way when it came back in 1980. It became the main thing, the theme music. So it's just reusing, and the reason why it was reused, made money from Merv Griffin, so he didn't have to pay someone else to do another thing.
Right.
The Think me brought it back. It makes sense.
So, now, Lindsay, with your interviews, did Alex talk about what you thought he would talk about?
Yes. At least there were only 3 on the card. Each one is only 3 on the card, and they put a star next to the one that would be kind of the quickest, easiest, or most interesting. And so in my first game, I thought the quickest, easiest, and most interesting would be, or not particularly interesting, but the quickest and easiest would be that I share a birthday with my mom. And I honestly don't even remember what the third one on that card was. But the second one was that I'm afraid of butterflies. So that apparently became a relatively big deal in my world because it became, because they made a little animation of it, which I was sort of surprised about, honestly. But yeah, I wasn't surprised about either of the questions that were asked.
Now, it seemed like there were a large number of people who saw that video and were definitely feeling like it seemed to me like there were a lot of people who discovered last week that they were not the only person to have a fear of butterflies.
Yeah. So I also discovered that last week. So I'm glad to see that. Now, I don't know if you're referring to the Facebook comments or, on Twitter or all the different social media, but I purposely did not look at the comments on Facebook just because I didn't want people to make fun of me, I guess, or I didn't want to see people saying kind of mean things about me, which it seems like on Facebook comments they do, or not about me, just in general saying mean things. But yeah, when I posted it on my own Facebook, I got a bunch of people, including Brandon, saying that butterflies are gross. And I forgot to actually mention in the show that it's not just butterflies I'm afraid of, it's also moths. And moths are actually what I'm more afraid of than butterflies.
Moths are awful.
They're disgusting. Nobody likes them. So I don't know what, I don't think people would be freaked out about me being afraid of moths, but they were kind of weirded out by me being afraid of butterflies. But I was really glad to see for instance, on Reddit, people that wrote, "Oh yeah, I hate butterflies too." So that kind of made me feel like there was a little club, I guess.
It's really interesting to see what can happen as a result of what happens on Jeopardy, though.
Yeah, it is.
So, were there any categories that came up in games you weren't in that you wish you'd been able to play?
Absolutely, for me. In Brandon and Claudia's game, it was the NHL logos. I'm a big sports logo nerd, which, if that's a thing. So I knew all of those, like that. And I don't remember whose game it was. I believe it was the first game with Lisa and Nick. And I believe that was about the state of the university. And Andy, is that correct? Was it the first?
Let me.
You don't have to check. It's fine. I just thought you were about to correct me.
Oh no. Let's see.
It's okay. But that one would have also been. I knew all those.
Oh, that was the Wednesday game. Sarah Lee, Steph, and Michael.
Oh, okay. All right. Good to know. Yeah. So those were my 2 categories. Yeah, I'm really good at sports logos, and I'm really good at stuff about colleges and universities. So those, I was just like, oh, I wish those were on my game.
Mm-hmm. And you, Brandon?
I don't know if I remember. My strongest categories that I favor are pop culture and music. They may have had a category on Gilbert's either second or third day about pop culture, gold and silver.
Yes.
That's my wheelhouse. So I knew the majority of those. But not much that I really remember. Like, man, I wish I would have gotten that category. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I think yeah, that might be it.
Mm-hmm. So how different is it watching Jeopardy in the 3 months since you've taped compared to before?
Whew. So again, I'm gonna say it, and it makes me sound terrible, but I don't care. I being having been on two game shows before, I have every successful game show I've been on. I've gained a lot more empathy. What I go through on stage, and so I gained even more empathy, pressure. Gilbert posted something on some either his wall or something like that. And he said I made some boneheaded decisions. I answered some questions incorrectly on his and I was like, yeah, you did. And some of them were like, wow, how could you do that? But the ultimate thing that matters is that you won.
Right.
You still won, and there's a lot of pressure that's on that show. You have to compete against the other two people who know it all. You have to get in time and buzz it, and then you have to make sure you're saying things correctly, and you have to make sure that Alex doesn't make fun of you. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on. I've become a lot more over the years, and that hasn't decreased after going. I'm very much empathetic to Zara on the show.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, for sure. Now, what about you, Lindsay?
I basically feel the same way. It's definitely empathy, and I've always kind of felt empathetic towards the contestants. I mean, I guess since I got the call, which was only a month before the show, uh, but yeah, I always was felt a little bit empathetic for them, and but now especially since I've been on it, and I I can just see, oh, that one, they all knew the answer to the question, but they weren't able to buzz in, just like I wasn't, things like that. And I realized that it's a lot more about that the show, all of us know the answers I mean, not for every question, obviously, but all of us know the answers for probably half of the questions in the game. But it's the luck or the skill of using the buzzer at who gets in first. And so it's an interesting thing that I wouldn't have noticed had I not had my experiences with the buzzer.
And like a comment you made earlier, Andy, concerning what Lindsay in and everything, and your response, Lindsay, to that about your slow response seemed that way. Because there were questions that people got in on me, and I'm like, get in on time. And so, you did what you still did. So I didn't really see that, and you were very formidable. All my challengers were very formidable. Just wanted to put that out there.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So when you both respectively went out to LA, Culver City to tape, what else did you do while you were out there?
Go first, Lindsay.
Okay. So I actually went out with my parents and my grandparents. So I was really lucky to have all of them there with me. But as I believe Claudia and Lisa said last week, it was 106, 107 degrees when we were out there. So there was a lot of stuff that I personally, I would have loved to do, but it was just too hot. But we did very quickly go out to the Santa Monica Pier. We took an architectural tour of downtown LA, which was something that I really, really wanted to do. I actually had canceled a trip to Chicago where I was just going to go solo and take a bunch of architectural tours to be on Jeopardy. So I was like, well, damn it, I'm not going to Chicago, but I'm going to LA and learning about Frank Gehry. So that was definitely the highlight of my time outside of the studio, was my architectural tour. And yeah, we went to Santa Monica one day and went out. We walked around, the UCLA area also a little bit.
And you, Brandon?
Well, so just like Lindsay said, it was hot, and I out in heat. Interest in walking around and seeing Enoch. Funny enough, one of the things I did when I was in Hollywood, when I taped Hollywood Squares, finished taping the show, and I knew I won the tournament. I celebrated, and I celebrated by going to get some Roscoe's chicken and waffles. But it's definitely LA staple. And so after I finished Lindsay's, I got in my car and I went to go drive to get some chicken and waffles. Thing I did had enough free time to do.
Okay.
And it was very satisfying, and I loved it.
Oh, absolutely. I can see why that it looks like that's almost become a tradition for you now.
Yeah. Well, continue, but it was fun. So.
Mm-hmm. So, was there anything that you thought that I would bring up tonight but didn't, or any questions you have for either myself or for each other?
Yes, actually, and I actually kind of appreciate you didn't bring it up, but I do want to. So, what was interesting? So, as I was watching the first game, I got some text messages. Hey, you're not phrasing your answer correctly. You're not question. I said, nope. That's like I always do that. Like, I'm like, well, it's there, so move on. I got 2 messages like that, and I was like, very weird. As I myself on TV, I always heard me say it. And I never like Lindsay messages. I never go on any of the dumb stuff. And oh my God, people were up in arms about me apparently not saying who is or what is. That was very surprising and very interesting to me that people caught up with that, hung up on that type of thing. I never felt the need to defend myself. I think Game Show Nerd was of the game. No one ever stopped me or said, hey, you didn't say this, or you need to slow down and speak more clearly and succinctly. So I read your article, Andy, and enough about how people criticize Jeopardy contestants to know whether it would be a racial thing. However, I do appreciate breaking it down and saying, hey, that's wrong. Like, listen, if you really care to, you should listen. Obviously, it was all kind of very silly to begin with. And so not the people that would contact me who I knew were family and friends, I would shut them down.
Yeah.
And all, but ultimately, I was really in the game, and I did my best, and I shocked at how everything went, but I knew what I was doing. I didn't
Oh, I mean,
I always follow what was supposed to be done. So
oh yeah, like absolutely. Like there was
yeah.
absolutely no doubt in my mind that you were phrasing it in the form of a question. And I mean, as I said in the article that I wrote about it, it's not the first time where people have said something about, not phrasing in the form of a question. This is something that happens on a semi-regular basis on that surface. Again, the problem I saw with it was that in this case, it had gone further and people were using it to try to almost overshadow anything else that had gone on. Like basically, normally what happens is, you'll get maybe a half a dozen people being like, "Oh, are you guys not doing phrasing anymore?" Yada yada yada. And
Mhm.
in this case, it was, you know, didn't answer in the form of a question. It affected, and these people were trying to make the case that it affected the outcome of games, and it seemed to me like people were getting very irrational about it.
That's very interesting. So I mean, I did what I did, and I don't. I know that I followed the rules. I think any of the other contestants believe that I was.
And I mean, it's
Rules by.
certainly
I'm skipping a couple. Was very important. I knew the criticism. But yeah, I was very bored. Like people want to make sure that all the
exactly. You wanted to make sure we saw all the clues for sure.
read their answer, everything, and I did my best. I really wanted to make sure I answered everything off the move.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, and I personally think, and I've said this over and over again, I bet Brandon's probably getting sick of it, but I think he did an absolutely awesome job at keeping the game moving along. And it's just, with some people, especially people online, you just can't win. Either the game's going too slow or someone isn't doing the main thing in the game, which, if he wasn't, I mean, if Brandon wasn't saying, phrasing it correctly, don't you think at least somebody in the audience would have noticed and said something, or one of the producers or one of the judges? And it was just, none of us had that feeling. None of us thought about it until people started tweeting about it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, was there anything else that either of you would like to bring up during this panel?
Nothing for me, just that Brandon was an awesome person to play against, and so was Gilbert, and so was everybody else that I played against, and also everybody that I've luckily gotten a chance to keep in touch with since our filming.
yeah, definitely same here. I was very happy. So it was I felt when I was done, our last final Jeopardy, I'm like, my time is done. Very happy.
Yeah, I'm really glad that I did not.
At it. I think she was sweet the entire time. And so
I couldn't hear that, so I don't know if you were talking about me, but I heard you say she, and so I'm assuming it's positive because I'm listening to it. So thank you.
what?
Excuse me.
So, on that note, I think Brandon, your connection was cutting out a bit, and I just want to say you're both very complimentary of each other.
Well, we like each other.
Yes.
And we're lucky to have kept in touch.
Mm-hmm. So on that note, I'd like to thank the both of you for joining me on hashtag Jeopardy Live panel this evening. I'm sorry that the audio was so our respective internet connections were not particularly helpful for us this evening.
Yeah, I'm sorry the internet connections kept cutting out.
And talking to Lindsay again. And yeah, I reliving my experience at Jeopardy it was fantastic. So
yeah, thank you so much for inviting me.
So on that note, just a reminder to the rest of our viewers that we'll be back next Monday night at 9:15 p.m. Eastern, and I'm just going to get the credits up here, and here we go. Once again, thank you so much for joining us here on hashtag Jeopardy Live panel. Have a great night.